Adapted from a reading by Lynn Cox, The Heart, Both, and. Spirit of life, ever adapting and renewing, we come together this morning with yearnings that do not match. We yearn for stability, for even one moment of feeling like we know what is going on, for the ability to predict and prepare for what's coming next. Yet we also yearn for change. We ache for a world that turns away from racism, violence, dehumanization, and disregard for suffering. We pray for a change in the illness, grief, isolation, incarceration, and vulnerability of our loved ones. We reach for connection that will remind us that we are worthy as we are, and we reach for connection that will help us become our better selves. Hold us in the heart of both and cradle us in the mystery. Cherish us in the eternal presence of love, and encourage us on the path of growth and development. As individuals and as a people, help us to become who we are called to be. Lead us to open pathways to deeper wisdom through reconciliation, self-respect, and mutual respect, compassion, owning, and making amends for our mistakes. Source of wonder, move us to express and live in gratitude for the beauty of this world, for our loved ones, for this day of possibility. To this we add the meditations of our heart, and we enter in this time of worship. Please rise in body and spirit, mind, whatever you have to offer today. Sing our opening hymn, number 361. Enter, rejoice, and come in, and the words will be on the screen.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Here today in this place and with these people, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so we can feel. May we feel so we can know. And may we know so that we can change ourselves and this world. May this chalice we light our way. For the youth in service, online and in their classrooms, for all who learn from parables and stories, it's our time for all ages. We're reading Something Someday, a new book by Amanda Gorman, illustrated by Christian Robinson. You are told that this is not a problem, but you're sure there's something wrong. You're told this cannot be fixed, but you know that you can help. And you're told that this is too big for you, but you've seen the tiniest things make a huge difference. You're told that this won't work, but how will you know if you never try? You're told to sit and wait, but you know people have already waited too long. You're told that what's going on is very, very sad, but you're not just sad, you're scared and confused and you're angry. And maybe, just maybe, a little hopeful. You're told not to hope, but you keep hoping anyway. Sometimes you feel you're all alone. Someday, somewhere, you find a friend, someone who will hope with you, who believes in your dream, someone who will fight with you. You make a promise to each other. You say, there's a problem, but it's our problem together, so we can fix it. This problem is big, but together we are bigger. You make another friend and tell them it's okay to be sad. And they tell you, sometimes we'll lose, but that's all right, we'll try again. And so you do, together, working together, beginning over and over and over and over, until you're no longer beginning, you're winning. Suddenly there's something you're sure is right, something you know that you helped fix, something small that changed into something big, something that worked, something that makes you feel hopeful and happy and loved, something that is not a dream, but the day you live in, something that makes you smile as you tell someone else. Thank you. Now, in this time that invites us to lean even more deeply into our mission as Unitarian Universalists, we renew our commitment to responding out of deep care to one another. So now it's our Sunday time to briefly share a joy, a sorrow, a gratitude, something that you carry deeply within your hearts this morning. If you're on site in the sanctuary, please come up here to the front and speak into this microphone while Sara helps you with your candle. And if you're on Zoom and have a message you'd like to share, you can put it in the chat, and I will read it as Sara lights a candle for you. And a few general reminders, this isn't a time for announcements or politics. Please say your name. Please share from your heart and from your own experience, and be mindful not to share anyone else's experience unless you have their express permission to do so. So would anyone like to share this morning? And this morning we especially hold in our hearts the many innocent people, including and especially the many children who are fearful and hurting as a result of war. May the love that guides us in our living values be ever present in our minds and spirit. Every Sunday, we receive an offering to support the mission of this congregation, and here we care for one another, and we extend our love and care into the wider community through actions for love and justice. Your contributions allow this congregation to reach out to all who seek a life-affirming message of hope and love. If you're online, you can click the link in the Zoom chat to make a contribution, and if you're on site, you can place a donation in the basket, or you can use your device to find the link on uufhc.net. Whatever method of giving you choose, your generosity helps to grow a healthier, more joyful UU community, and in keeping with our religious heritage, to draw the circle of love and justice just a little bit closer. Thank you, Brenna. That was a beautiful improvisation. This reading is an adapted reading of A History of Church, including yours, including ours, by Sean Neil Barron. One day, your church was born, and maybe it was a gathering of saints called together for the common worship of a wrathful God, ceaselessly praying between bouts of decrying the evil of Halloween or dancing. Or maybe a few brave souls answered a notice in the newspaper, curiosity piqued by the announcement of a religion where free thinking and tolerance were bedrocks. No matter how it happened, your church was born, a gathering of people, humble, caring, anxious, and quirky all at the same time, who covenanted to be with one another on the journey of life, death, and everything in between. And so it began, with a faithful few, beautifully imperfect, called to that central task, that human task of connecting, loving, and serving. It was just a baby, and yet it was thrust deep into the human condition, tasked to hold minds and souls, bodies and hearts along the roller derby of disease and birth, infighting and joy, and Christmas pageants, and sometimes all of these at the same time. They gathered to hear the world broken open for insightful sermons, rejuvenating music, and a community whose fierce devotion to each other's well-being rivaled a mama bear's for her cubs. But it just wasn't always like that, of course. There were the trying times, and I don't just mean Phyllis or Jack, those stubborn but lovable souls who inhabit the netherworld of committee meetings. No, I mean trying times, when the church almost split in half over differing opinions, or when the mill left the town vacant, or when someone crossed a line and the people couldn't speak about it for decades. But somehow you were still here, still on the town common, still the church that everyone recognizes, still the ones that show up every time you were called on, still using the communion silver until you voted to sell it. New people came and they changed things, small things, big things, things that nobody noticed as it happened until suddenly it was hard to even recognize anything anymore. And that was a hard moment, a tearful moment. And other things changed too. The proclamations about God, once loud from the pulpit, softened. Wrathful became loving. Distant became intimate. Mandatory became optional. The history of your church is more a story of the determination of love to break forth than it is about tie-dye or chalices, sermon discussions, or social justice committee meetings. The history of the church is the history of human enterprise, involving its sights and sounds, yet revolving always around its core. The history of your church is the gift of potential and momentum of baggage and personality. The history of your church is the launch pad from which you spring. Each day, your church, our church, is born.
First, I would like to thank you for sending me to GA. Did you know you did that? Maybe not, but I did, and I really appreciate it. I'm grateful. As a result, I feel empowered, more empowered, to help the community here. So I asked to speak to the congregation today. That's a new step for me, pretty big. And if you get a chance to go to GA, do it. It's worth it. Now today it's your job to determine what is the good, the bad, and the ugly in what I have to share. Secondly, I want to say Sue Knoss and Jasmine Stock also attended GA as delegates. Personally, I attended virtually online. By the way, there were attendees from all 50 states, DC, Canada, Mexico, and the Philippines. Pretty impressive. I'd like to address 3 areas of concern. The first one is Article 2. Psst, we've been through that a lot, but there's more to say. Also, action. The second one is action of immediate witness. And the third is complete divestment from fossil fuel industry and subsequent reparations. It's a lot of stuff. Article 2. Kim has important background information to share.
So if you aren't aware, Article 2 of the UUA Bylaws, Principles, and Purposes is the foundation for all of the work of our UUA and its member congregations and covenanted communities. It's the covenant to which all of our congregations and covenanted communities pledge ourselves when they become members of our UUA. And Article 2's last substantial revision was in 1985, so it's been a while, almost 40 years. There have been many projects, resolutions, task force, and other strategies that have come from the board of UUA, the Commission on Appraisal, and from grassroots groups, which encourage us to take a look at our principles, purposes, bylaws, and rules. And as our UUA board discerned, it's time for us to do a review and make changes so that we're living into the Unitarian Universalism of the future, a Unitarian Universalism that holds us in times of great need and ethical, moral, and spiritual crises. And we are in one of those times now.
Jasmine, Sue, and I listened to the pros and cons proposed for the changes to Article 2. As her congregation had voted on continuing the conversation about the proposal, when the time came to vote, Jasmine and I voted for approval to continue the conversation. However, Sue discovered that there would be a continuing conversation, but 15 congregations would have to agree upon and send any revisions to the current wording of the amendment. This has since been confirmed by our primary contact at UUA for the Central East region for UUFHC, and that is Lenore Bahari Dukes, who said,
The Article 2 proposal is subject to changes or amendments in 2024 only by a 3/4 vote in favor of an amendment submitted to the General Assembly in writing by the UUA Board of Trustees, or a minimum of 15 certified congregations by action of their governing boards or their congregations.
so not only 15 congregations, but 15 certified congregations, which means that we have to pay our dues to UUA for the fiscal year. Therefore, we get to send delegates to the GA Assembly. And guess what? We're certified. Certified as what? I kind of ask myself, but anyway, we're certified.
Sadly, we, the members of UUFHC, missed out on an opportunity to participate in the process of re-envisioning Article 2 to address the future of Unitarian Universalism amidst the world in which we find ourselves right now. In fact, most of us were completely unaware that changes were being contemplated over the last 2 years and that our participation in the conversation was welcome. Even though we didn't participate, though, please be reassured that during those 2 years, intense study and debate and discussion by a diverse group of UUs went into the changes proposed to Article 2. And Jasmine and Sara and Sue can give us more information about that if you're interested after, during our coffee hour. And in addition to that, there's a 26-page report, which we can all read, that explains the process and details the end results of their exhaustive study. And I'm going to provide a link, 2 links, and one to frequently asked questions about Article 2 and one to the actual report in our next News Bites. So if you're interested in this topic, take a look at the News Bites on Thursday and you can find out more. In any event, it seems clear that there have been some communication gaps between UUFHC and the larger UU world, including our own Central Eastern region.
Did you even know that we were in the Central Eastern region? Well, I've learned that. And we now have a contact. For our primary contact is Lenore. And I've heard rumors, and then a confirmation that we now have a denominational affairs liaison, if that's the correct term. It means we have a liaison here from UFHC who connects with the CER primary contact, Lenore. And that is none other but our Sue Knoss.
Yay!
Thank you, Sue, for taking that task. Ooh. There was some confusion about the deadline for changes to Article 2 as it stands. The Article 2 Commission is currently evaluating all the amendments that are already submitted at GA. They have 6 months to do so. That means from June to December. So not quite there yet. And as Kim has noted, and this is the hard part, so hear this one. Any further amendments to the proposed Article 2 that as a group or groups of 15 congregations submits to the UA board will be voted on at the next GA. In order for its amendments to be added, it requires a 3/4 vote in favor to become part of the new proposal. And that's voted by the delegates. The final revision of Article 2, then, will be voted on by the GA delegates again, but it requires 2/3 vote to pass. And if so, we will have a new Article 2. Ken and I both contacted Lenore for help with various issues, including Article 2, and Lenore referred me to Gianni Fogliano, who is specifically involved with changes. I'll provide her email address and Lenore's in News Bites, so you can contact them if you're so interested. We've also reached out to Gianna for more direction on how to connect with other congregations, and if we do, they still have to agree with our proposals. So there's still a lot to go. Currently, we're waiting for more to hear from Lenore and Gianni, and if so, we will pass that information on to you. And if anyone has a burning desire to work on this task, yeah, right, of proposing changes to Article 2, please stand up. Yeah, well, don't get all over yourselves. Anyway, reach out to me or the board or Reverend Jay.
Right. And 2 final notes from me on Article 2. Our 5th principle states that we affirm the right of conscience and the democratic process within our congregations and society at large. It's been a part of our heritage since 1961, when it was then part of our 3rd principle, along with wording from what is now our 1st principle. So change is nothing new to Unitarian Universalism. Change is part of our UU heritage. And so again, if you do have that burning desire that Sara spoke of, I urge you to respect the work that was done and to dig into that 26-page report first, so you can be informed.
Right, not an easy task. But that was Article 2, people. That's it. Whew. A lot, huh? So we had other issues to address. The next one, the second one, was action of immediate witness. Action of immediate witness means that you look at what UUA may want to focus on for the next year. And there were 6 possibilities. We got to vote on 3. The first one was, and we talked about this, by the way, the 3 of us again, and we agreed. The first one we voted on was organizing health equity. That was affirmed. The second was protect the Dreamers, recipients of Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival, or DACA, with a pathway for permanent residence. That was affirmed. The next one, not on our watch, Russia's invasion of Ukraine and call for action, was not affirmed. I was disappointed about that. But what was affirmed was Rise Up to Stop Cop City, which actually meant that there was a location that was identified where they were going to build a training for more military-type training for cops, and they were able to stop that. And what we're hoping for is more of a mental health approach for cops to have training. The other 2 actions of immediate witness were not affirmed, and they were Code Red for Humanity, the climate impacts of military emission. The other one, urgent call to action, embracing the goals and provision of the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. Those were not affirmed.
And the things that were not affirmed were not affirmed because they had no value. They did, but you could only choose 3 out of the 6 because there's only so much that you can work on with any effectiveness. So they had to prioritize, and they work on 3. For a link to learn a little bit more about these actions of immediate witness, you can check out our News Bites on Thursday, and you can even find the vote tallies there.
So the third one, we also voted on a proposed amendment to a UUA business resolution calling for the complete divestment from the fossil fuel industry. This is the endowment fund for the church and subsequent reparations. This was not affirmed.
There are several links I'll be including in News Bites about UUA's position and also the position of the UU Ministry for the Earth following that failed vote. Briefly, UUA has pledged to do and will continue this work because we know that UUs are integral to that effort. And to that end, the UUA has already begun conversations through the UU Climate Justice Coalition, which is a network of UU organizations who are collaborating on climate work, to discuss how we can move forward in ways that achieve the climate justice goals that we all as Unitarian Universalists share. And recognizing the intersectional framework of climate justice, we've also begun conversations about reparations for past harms from the UUA and its predecessors as called for by the Commission on Institutional Changes 2020 report, which is widening the circle of concern. And I'll have that report for you or link to it in the News Bites as well.
I was angry about this proposal not being affirmed because, to me, it meant that UUA supports fossil fuels, and everyone suffers from fossil fuels emissions, including and especially the poor indigenous populations. I mean, is UU living up to their values? That was my question. It seemed like robbing Peter to pay Paul. Later, I scanned through the UUA report. The reasoning for not approving the means seemed to be all about money. And the very last statement was about beginning of reparations for the indigenous people. Are we not in a survival crisis due to climate change? Is money more important than survival? Well, then I have to look at the other side. Money's important for survival, right? But I'm still grappling with this. Kim and I talked about this a lot. However, Kim sent me a report from the UU Ministry of Earth. This resolution, as written, would lead to UUA staff layoffs, legal challenges, and major losses in the assets we protect, meaning our money. So as a result, I've looked at my own accountability. As we as a congregation and as individuals should perhaps look at our own investments. I know I've tried to change to more sustainable investments, but truthfully, I'm unsure where I stand with that right now. I made a note for myself to contact my financial advisor. And I would encourage you to look at that yourself. We have an investment here. We have an endowment fund here as a congregation. Maybe that's something we need to look at as well. But we need to look at it as individuals, too, I believe. We are the privileged few. Many? I don't know. But there are a lot of people who have a lot less than we do. I just know that, and I feel that in myself. So, a moment for reflection. And then take a breath. And on the brighter side, all the workshops I attended had to do with right relations. There were a couple of statements that really stood out to me. Children are not the future of our church. Children are our church. Disruptions are sacred and holy. A small body means a large spirit. Part of the reason I joined the church, and I'll say this over and over, is for my grandkids. I want them to have an informed and democratic point of view of spirituality, if I can say it that way. And like when we, as children, growing up, there was a row of us, 5 kids plus my mom, that waited for Sunday school. That's the way it was. I like it when our family is together. I like it when we're in the sanctuary together. I liked it when the children were here until they heard the story, the children's story. They don't even hear the children's story in the back. Did you know that? Probably shouldn't say that.
No, they actually do.
They do?
Yep, it's
Last
recorded.
I knew they didn't. I asked.
Oh, no, it's recorded. They're listening with us, and they try to pause
Good.
their
Well, I don't know if they want to
activities
hear
and
this
listen.
part, but
No,
okay.
they do hear it.
Yeah, okay.
Today, they're not hearing it. They're in another room.
Oh, that's right. Okay. And I'm glad now we have a committee that's working on making our children's program better. In the spirit of right relations, coming to the end here, at the closing of GA, 2 different individuals made apologies to the community. One had to do with the workshop that I attended. One participant made a remark that another participant, disabled, felt harmed by. The moderator did not react immediately, and the one who felt hurt came back to make a statement that the organization needed to take steps to protect disabled attendees. So at the closing service on Sunday morning, a representative of the technology group apologized to the whole community that they would do better next year. That is right relations in action. The second one, the EU Care team, who helps take care of those who have been harmed, also acknowledged that they made mistakes this year and they would offer improvements for next year. Right relations again. Part of the closing ceremony that touched me the most, however, was the installation of the new president. The outgoing president laid hands on the new president, and the staff laid their hands on both presidents and each other, actually. And then the members in the audience joined, and the youth bridged the two groups. It was the most powerful experience to me, and I'd like to share it with you for the next few minutes. At the conclusion of the installation, please rise in body, mind, and spirit to join with the folks at GA in singing our closing hymn, There Is a Love. Thank you.
Reverend Sophia, as your colleague, you're old, very old enough that this is all now white, friend. And as someone honored to serve our faith alongside you as a member of the Board of Trustees, it is my joy to guide us through the laying on of hands and the blessing of you as you take up this leadership, this ministry. The practice of laying on of hands in ordinations, in installations, in circles of healing and blessing reminds us of the relational sources and context of our power. Leaders do not serve alone, and ours is always a shared ministry rooted in collaboration and interconnection. So I'm going to invite you to come forward to the side, take your place in the chair. We would not simply install you in your office, but bless you for this ministry. And so I invite you now to find your stillness and be held in trust by the presence of your family, the leaders who will serve alongside you, and the wider presence of our UU community, both online and here on site. You are companioned most closely now and will be in the days going forward by your family of blood and of choice. And so I ask Sam Ames and the Reverend Michael Slack to please come join us. Please lay your hands lightly upon Sophia. And we hold in our hearts others whom you love, who are not able to be here today, but are present in spirit. The Reverend Dr. Devorah Greenstein, Sophia's parents, Patricia Linton and Octavio Betancourt, and others present in blessed memory, Sheikh Professor Ibrahim Farajaji, and Sophia's grandparents, Carmen Linton Holt, Percival Linton, Sonia Lalbarca Betancourt, Julio Betancourt, Nathaniel Batchelder, and Betty Batchelder. Breathe deeply. Remember who you are. Remember where you come from, where your heart is most at home. You are also companioned in this call by a long line of esteemed predecessors. And I ask Susan Frederick Gray to please come forward. And I also recognize Bill Singford and ask you to come over this way too, please. We also hold in heart and mind Leon Spencer, Bill Singford and Leon Spencer, who served alongside you as co-presidents. I know you know this. These leaders and your other predecessors are here to support you in ways that you need and ask. And if there happen to be any other UUA presidents in the hall right now, please rise. And if not, we will hold you in our hearts and minds as well. You are companioned by the strong leaders of our association, called to serve, elected by our people, just as you have been. And you will be partnered by these colleagues and will draw strength and wisdom from one another. So I ask our co-moderators, Charles Dumont and the Reverend Meg Riley, and the fellow members of the UUA Board of Trustees who are on stage here to come. And please, join this laying on of hands. I want to invite members of the UUA staff who are on stage to come forward to support you. And if there's any board members or staff, please rise in body or in spirit. You are companioned too by your beloved colleagues in shared ministry. And so any religious professionals here on the stage, please come forward and join. Friends, as you gather now, we will make concentric circles here, and eventually we will connect to all of you as well. I ask youth advisors, membership professionals, administrators, musicians, seminarians, religious educators, and ministers to please rise in body or in spirit. And most importantly, you are companioned in this work by our people, countless lay leaders who serve their congregations and our movement. There is no one else, no ecclesiastical body, no bishop who recognizes or authorizes this naming. The very hearts and hands that embody our faith beyond this place, in every congregation, large, small, in worship and peacemaking and justice-seeking, in institutional commitment, in the day-to-day celebration of life. These are the hearts and hands that hold our faith, and they, too, are laid upon you now. So if there's anybody on this stage who needs to come forward and lay on their hands, that's great. I know we have some musicians who are going to be laying on hands in spirit. And now I ask all of you in the congregation to please rise in body or in spirit. Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt. It is from their trust and their vision, all of our trust and vision, that your authority derives. You are called by this people, called up and chosen to lead and to listen, to lean on them, on us, for wisdom and clarity and courage. And so, friends, I invite you to connect in body or in spirit as feels good and appropriate to you. Join hands, touch elbows, share a kind look or a gesture. Across space, connect in the ways that are correct and right for you as we join together in this blessing. And online, please connect, open your hearts, offer a gesture or an acknowledgement of these people, this community, to join in connection across the distance. I especially ask any of our youth and young adults if you might like to come up especially and help us bridge these gaps between here and everyone else, we would be grateful. Please.
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love
Shirley Chisholm was asked why she, a black woman, was running for president. You don't have a chance. Why are you doing that? And she said, because I am in love with the America that does not yet exist. And that's how Unitarian Universalism is also. I'm in love with the Unitarian Universalism that does not yet exist. But I have to hold both the love for that thing and the love for the reality. It does not yet exist. It will probably not exist in my lifetime. I don't think that it will in that of my children, but I can't deny my love for it and, wanting to be there in that struggle. And that's why I'm fighting with you, my comrades in love. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be. And Sarah, will you help me extinguish the chalice? We extinguish this flame, but not its meaning and mission in our hearts. Our time together has come to an end. Go in peace, be of service to one another, and may you move through the world in love for all of your days. Amen, and blessed be.